Welcome to Bar Freak, the podcast where we tell African history stories and stories about decolonization over a drink or two. I am Sarah Masiwa. I am co-hosting from London today. Joining us virtually is Lynn from Montreal.
I love how every episode you try to pronounce it in a different way.
I feel like I'm consistent in my poor French pronunciation. But joining me in studio today is a very special guest. And you might even say that without her, there would be no Bara Freak because there would be no me.
Absolutely.
In the pod studio today is my mother, Tsitsi Masiwa. I am actually going to let you introduce yourself. Because I think we're doing a Bara Freak first, because you've brought us a special gift into the studio today.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we're going to chat about that for a second.
Okay, great. So as Sarah said, I'm Sarah's mom, and I wear many hats, but the one I'm most proud about is that I'm mother to 6 children, and also, apart from that full-time job, yes, it continues even if all of you are in your 20s. I also, I like to see myself as a community worker, activist in that, and I do this, I express my being part of transformation of communities through philanthropy. And we do that in different areas, in education, in health, strengthening our cultural heritage, and also helping communities to be financially strong and sustainable. And I also like to edit content. Not necessarily write it, but edit.
And speaking of editing, you are promoting a book. I mean, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Secondly, this is Lynn and I's first ever book promotion. So thank you.
This is exciting, though.
So before we jump into the story, why don't I tell us a little bit about what we're talking about today?
I'm literally dying to know, because you come not knowing what we're going to be talking about.
Well, because I think we're afraid that one day a guest will just Google the whole story, because all our stories are like available on the internet. Like you can just Google things.
Yeah.
So we're always worried that a guest will show up and they'll have Googled the whole story.
And no more than you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, wouldn't that be terrible? But fortunately,
And be correcting you.
yeah, exactly. I'll say 1961 and they'll be like, 1962, please. But today's story, we're talking about Patrice Lumumba.
Okay.
I see your eyes lighting up because it's you probably know. You probably know the story of Patrice Lumumba. But what we wanted to do is kind of do a bit of a different perspective on the story. I think Lynn and I think doing the story of Patrice Lumumba, I think there's been so many wonderful resources and ways that it's already been done, that we kind of just wanted to do maybe a lesser known aspect of the story. And so Patrice Lumumba, on January 17th, 1961, was assassinated by firing squad by Congolese militants, as well as under the oversight of Belgian officials. But what a lot of people don't know is that prior to this, the United States, the CIA, had a very bizarre and strange plot to poison Lumumba first.
Okay.
And so today we're taking a look at the CIA, the lesser known story of the CIA's plot to assassinate Patrice Lumumba.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for him. And I think when I think of Patrice Lumumba, I think of what Belgium did. So it will be interesting to hear the contribution, the added contribution from the CIA.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm really
excited.
excited for this story.
They're
Also,
still contributing, by the way.
They're still contributing today. Today, and before we go on, I would be remiss not to thank our listeners from the CIA because so
oh
we had a
yeah,
joke. We had a joke last year around somebody asking me if I believed the CIA listened to our podcasts, and so we thought best to thank our listener at Langley whenever
yeah.
we cover a CIA story. But before we kind of
Sarah,
get
we are very innocent citizens, okay? Promise you,
she's
we are not a threat to anybody.
I know she
Keep it pure and simple.
I know, don't worry. It's pure and simple. And I promise to not do or say anything today that will jeopardize your ability to get into the United States. Okay, well, let's jump into this story. The thing I love about this story is that it starts more than a decade after the death of Patrice Lumumba. So we're going to start the story in on the 17th of June, 1972, in Washington, D.C. A group of 5 people breaks into the Democratic National Committee's headquarters. And this, they get caught. It launches a scandal that becomes known as Watergate. If you don't know what Watergate is, President Nixon of the United States, in a bid to get reelected, arranged and hired for people to break into the opposition party's headquarters to steal information, right? So this is like an American scandal. It's not known immediately, but it becomes known that 2 CIA veterans are part of the group of 5 that broke in, right? Around the same time, or like slightly afterwards, the CIA actually has a new director. His name is James R. Schlesinger. So James R. Schlesinger.
Okay.
He comes into the CIA, becomes aware that the CIA has been involved in Watergate, and he's thinking to himself, this organization probably has a lot of secrets, and I want to know exactly what I'm heading into. So in what I think is like one of the dumbest spy moves ever, he starts an internal audit of the CIA. And he basically asks them to write a report telling him all the secrets of the CIA in the last 25 years so that he can better prepare to be the head of the organization. What's produced is a 700-page document called The Family Jewels. And the important thing is that no one except Schlesinger is supposed to see this document, right? It is for his eyes only. It is not to expose the CIA. It is quite literally a new boss saying, tell me what I need to deal with so that I can be better prepared. Obviously, the fact that we're talking about it now means that the documents eventually get out. And the reasoning for that is about 2 years after the burglary, which launched the Watergate scandal. Americans are, rightly asking the question of what else has the CIA done? How have they abused power? And a congressional committee is put together to ask that question of the CIA to say, what else have you been doing?
Okay. So this information you have, when does it become public for you to be able to go back and to what happened 1971?
So 1972 is when Watergate happened.
Yeah, okay.
1972, at the end of the year, is when they start writing The Family Jewels, the document.
Yeah.
1974 is when this committee is put into place.
And when does this information that you're reading to me now or you're
Become
talking about-
available.
Yeah.
The Family Jewels became available in 2007 in the
Okay.
public domain.
Okay.
Heavily redacted. But the important thing is that the church committee had access to the family jewels, right? So even if the public didn't have access to this document until 2007, the committee that was investigating the CIA to see what their abuses of power were had access to this document.
Okay.
And buried in this document, in its 700 pages, is a 2-sentence reference to a plot to poison the leader of the leader of the Congo at the time, Patrice Lumumba.
Okay.
The DRC, or rather the Congo at the time, from 1885 until 1905, was a private colony held by King Leopold II of Belgium, which is like obviously really unique, where a private individual has their own colony. Very brutal, especially in the rubber trade and forced labor, and just horrifically treating the Congolese people, responsible for the death of 10 million people. In 1905, his own people in Belgium, even they thought he had gone too far. And so the Congo is given to the Belgian government as a colony. And it's then called Belgian Congo.
So who's doing the giving? Who is the arbitrator or the person who's stepping back and saying, oh, this is really bad? We have to listen to the outcry. At this point, it looks like it's just listening to the outcry of the Belgians. There's no mention of the Congolese themselves.
Yeah.
So who's the one who then decides, okay, let's take the gift away from the king and rather give responsibility to the government?
I get your question. I don't think the Congolese people had anything to do with
Exactly. Absolutely.
who was getting given the Congo at
Yes.
any point in time.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's a really good point.
Okay.
So, and I think what's really important here is that the Belgian government, having received quote unquote, the Congo as a colony, really was quite morally superior, because to them they were like, oh, we've saved the Congolese people from this 10 million people being killed. And like moral relativity is that if the person before you killed 10 million people and you kill 1 million people, you could think you're the good guy, right? And so as like the independence movement of the 1940s, 1950s into the 1960s started to come about, but the Belgian government really felt as though they had a very hard time understanding why the Congolese would even be upset. And the activists in Congo had a very hard time trying to convince the Belgians.
Why do you think they thought like that?
Because
human beings are human beings.
Because again, it's moral relativity, right? Is that like, if the person before you killed 10 million people and you kill less people, you were like, well,
you're a better murderer.
Yes. Yes. You're like, why would they want everything?
Yeah, sorry. I also just feel like neither party saw the Congolese as people with autonomy. They just saw them as subjects to whatever advancement or whatever projects that they had for themselves. So the Congolese people were never seen as autonomous beings who could have any sort of feelings about anything, really, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's like, it's quite shocking because in Congo at the time, or like when independence did come about in 1960, there were only 30 university graduates who were Congolese in the whole country. So the Belgian government systematically did not invest in any kind of infrastructure that would be helpful to Congolese people. It was, as far as colonies go, it wasn't great.
Well, remember also, I think it's the period where human beings were just dehumanized. So I guess it made it easier for you to kill.
Yeah.
And to elevate.
Yeah.
Especially economic interests.
Yeah.
Over people's rights.
Yeah.
It's consistent, I think, with what was happening in the rest of on the rest of the continent.
100%. And then so let's talk about when the U.S. enters the picture. So the Congo at the time very resource rich, right? Especially Katanga, the region Katanga. And at the time, like in the 40s, in World War II, they had uranium. And Congolese uranium was actually what was used in the atom bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So the US was very interested in making sure that they always had access to Congolese uranium because it was so superior to any other uranium that could be found.
Sure. It's like we relive history.
Yeah, I know. We're still talking about Congo resources. It's the same
Exactly.
conversation.
If it's
over
not
and over again.
uranium, it's something else.
One thing that I found really shocking is that the US and the UK in 1944 were so keyed in on securing Congolese uranium that they secretly approached the Belgian government with a request to buy Congolese uranium for the rest of time.
For how much?
We don't know. But they said, we want to buy it for the rest of time. So they wanted us in 10,000 years' time to still be saying we still own because we bought it in 1944.
That's confidence off the chart. An assumption that you're gonna,
Foresight.
yeah,
securing wealth for your children's children's children. I mean, can you
Forever.
believe it?
Yeah.
So anyway, so 1944 ends, the World War II ends, and then the Cold War era starts, right? And so now the U.S. is not only interested in securing Congolese uranium, is interested in making sure that the Soviet Union doesn't get Congolese uranium, and that becomes the the focal point of what's happening in Congo at the time, because it's this idea of we need to keep the Soviet Union out to not get their hands on this uranium. And by the time 1959, 1960 comes around, Congo is crawling with spies, right? There are Soviet spies, there are American spies, British intelligence, Belgian intelligence. They are everywhere because everyone is trying to figure out how to lock down the uranium and how to make sure the other guy doesn't get the uranium. So it really becomes like the land of spies. And so taking a closer look at like the CIA, essentially in the 1950s, right, as like the calls for Belgian independence, as the calls for Congolese independence was growing, people like Patrice Lumumba were starting their party, which is called the MNC. And there's this incredible movement around in the Congo around securing independence, and it's quite repressive, and and what ends up happening is Belgium is like, there's no way we're giving independence to these people. They're like, no, there's no way we're giving it to these people. But as other countries start to, the UK starts to give independence over there. France starts to give one or two countries independence over there. Belgium is now like, I don't think we're going to get away with just saying no, right?
Sir, do you realize I was born in the 60s?
No, I know.
And as I'm listening to you, a part of me is like reliving the past.
Yeah.
Like opening up the rawness of colonialism and how just remembering it was more about economic interests at the center. And the sad thing is knowing it's still the case today. That's reality. But you're taking me back through my life experience and just the painful and also nauseating experience of living in an environment where you are colonized.
Yeah.
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 So it's interesting listening to you and Lynn. You colonialism is historical to you. It's just something that you read about. But for me, it's a lived experience.
Yeah.
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 I can completely understand, because you were born 1965.
I was born 65 and your dad 61. Yeah. So all those dates I'm thinking, okay, so I was 7 years old when we're putting together what did you call that report?
The family
The
jewels.
family jewels, and all those things were happening, and then also remembering what was physically happening in Rhodesia. That the war, the killings, the fear in which people lived, in the environment of fear and not knowing when you're gonna get the next call of this family member has passed away, has been killed. Yeah, so I think I've got a lot of emotions going on as you're
Yeah.
going through this.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think it is a bit surreal to be especially for Lynn and I and our generation to be feeling like, what we call colonial history is not really being taught and discussed the way it is when it was so recent.
Yeah.
It's incredible that, so Zimbabwe got independence 1980. It's incredible that in 2026 we're fighting for the history of 1980 to not disappear and to be it's quite jarring. Let us know if you want a break at any point.
It's okay. I've got my non-alcoholic wine to calm me down.
But kind of talking about Belgium, saying no to independence. So what they do in 1960 is they invite the independence leaders from the Congo to have a discussion with them, and it's called the Belgio-Congolese Roundtable. My favorite moment of this whole thing, it's held in Brussels, is that Patrice Lumumba is actually in prison at the time in solitary confinement. So he is not invited to the meeting. But it's this table where the Congolese are sitting on one side, the Belgians are sitting on the other side. And one by one, the Congolese stand up and they say that they will not proceed with the meeting unless Patrice Lumumba is allowed to be present. And so they pause the meeting, get Patrice Lumumba out of prison. He doesn't have a suit. He doesn't even have shoes. Put him on a plane and take him to the Belgio-Congolese Roundtable. And I think it's just this single moment of really wonderful unity in a class politique that will become quite divided after this point. I think it was lovely that there was this moment of real solidarity. But there's two things that happen at that roundtable which really doom Congolese independence. The first is that the Belgians agree to give the Congolese independence. And they say, we'll give you immediate independence. And that may sound like a really good thing, but what it does mean is that the Congolese don't have time to prepare, right? So it's a strategy by the Belgians to say that, okay, we're just going to blindside them with independence, and they'll be kind of just shuffling in the chaos of them trying to get things together. We can push things through, right? That will make us be able to maintain power after independence. And so they do things like 3 days before independence is effective, the Belgian parliament privatizes the mining company Union Minière, which is the country's economic engine. I kind of say that this is the equivalent of if I gift you a bank and then the day before you get the bank, I empty the bank and then you have to pay all the bills for the bank with no money. So that's the one thing that they do. The second thing that they do is that the Congolese people like Lumumba leave very quickly once they hear this announcement that independence is coming, and they leave young, inexperienced juniors to actually do a lot of the negotiations for independence. And so a lot of what's negotiated, it just is inadequately done from the Congolese side. And B, the CIA is actually waiting and recruits a lot of those juniors. And so that's how you see people like Joseph Mobutu be recruited. Like this moment is when the CIA credits to recruiting him as an asset. And so you really get this feeling that like Congolese independence is like really doomed before it even begins. And the one thing I'll say is that when Patrice Lumumba publishes the list of who his cabinet is going to be, the CIA head of intelligence for Belgian Congo, Larry Devlin, he said that at the time he recognized 3 of the cabinet ministers were CIA assets.
Oh my gosh. So he was basically doomed from the start.
Yeah, imagine you're like, think, are you okay?
No, I'm not okay.
Sorry.
I'm just thinking to myself, dear Lord, why, how on earth do you, does this country have a chance of even beginning? Because remember, a lot of this, or you wouldn't remember, well, you hadn't been born yet, but a lot of people involved in these conversations were initially genuinely concerned and genuinely wanted independence. But just, I think, naive and thinking whatever they were doing was being done in good faith. But that's on one hand. On the other hand, the lengths to which the Belgians or the Americans or whoever would go to maintain their economic interests is just shocking beyond words.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your phrase, like about good faith, I think this is what it is. It was a bad faith agreement. It
Yeah.
was an agreement that was designed to say, you know, an independence that was designed to fail. That's what Patrice Lumumba got. He never had a shot. By the time by the time he's getting his government together,
Exactly.
they were all already, this is like CIA proliferation. But I did want to just give us a brief moment of hope in all of this, because Patrice Lumumba on the Day of Independence delivers what I think is like one of my favorite speeches. Obviously, this is like an English translation, but I like, here's, I think, some moments from it. He says, no Congolese will ever forget that independence was won in a struggle, a persevering and inspired struggle carried from day to day. It was filled with tears, fire, and blood. We are deeply proud of our struggle because it was just and noble and indispensable in putting an end to the humiliating bondage forced upon us. We shall show the world what the Black man can do when working in liberty, and we shall make the Congo the pride of Africa. And the speech ends, long live independence and African unity, long live the independent and sovereign Congo. I just thought that was
Very powerful words. I mean,
Yeah.
they're still to come to pass.
yeah.
But what I cherish very much is, as a nation, these words are so powerful, but we don't see them as the reality of what the Congo is today. However, there are many of us, individuals all over the world, Congolese and other nationalities, that you really see those words are a reflection of where they are today.
Yeah.
So on one hand, we may say collectively as a country, there's still a long way to go and there's a big gap. But individually, there are many cases that we can look to and celebrate where I think those words that Patrice Lumumba spoke are ringing true to this day.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's very well said. I mean, and I think unfortunately that's the last moment of hope.
Okay,
in the
well,
story for a
it's
while.
okay. It's okay.
And the independence dream is very short-lived. 5 days after independence, the Congolese soldiers mutiny when they realize that Belgian officials have no intention of leaving. 11 days into independence, Moise Tshombe, did I say it right? Moise Tshombe, who is the president of Katanga, which is obviously where most of the resources are, declares secession. 25 days into independence, Patrice Lumumba announced that there's been a Belgian coup attempt. And at that point, he turns to the UN for help to get the Belgian troops out. And again, it's just emphasizing that like a lot of this that was going on was premeditated. It was agreed upon before independence even took place. And, what ends up happening is that, I think there's a lot of conversations around like Patrice Lumumba being a communist. And I think it's important to kind of understand the positioning that he was in. He initially went to the UN for help. He then turned to the US for help. So he actually traveled to the White House to see President Eisenhower. And the Belgian premier, so the leader of Belgium, was so offended that Patrice Lumumba would be allowed to stay in the same room and on the same bed that the King of Belgium had stayed in, that he actually uses some very nasty language and threatens to pull out of NATO because Patrice Lumumba has been allowed into the White House.
Now, if you have a king who thinks like that, what makes you think, or how would anyone imagine that there's anything genuine in any of the actions that he takes?
Yeah.
That giving independence is a genuine act of wanting the Congolese to be independent.
Yeah, it's not. It's not genuine. And President Eisenhower, who wants to maintain relations with Belgium and NATO, he chooses to stand Patrice Lumumba up for a round of golf. And so Lumumba comes back after seeking help from the US. And that's really when he reaches out to the Soviets. So I think that's just important to say that, like, there's a lot of, like, this whole, like, he's a communist, like, he hates America. He went to America first.
Yeah.
And so he reaches out to the Soviets. They give him planes. They give him ammunition. He gets labeled a communist. And the United States basically at that point agrees that Patrice Lumumba's got to go. And so we have like these communiques that have come out of the family jewels. And we see that in 1960, at some point, Larry Devlin, who's the CIA head in the Congo at the time, sends a communique to Washington, D.C., and the communique reads, whether or not Lumumba is actually a commie or just playing a commie game, I propose an operation aimed at replacing Lumumba with a pro-Western group. The CIA's Africa division agrees and then says that they're going to seek State Department approval. On that same day, there's testimony that comes out of that church committee hearing a decade later. Somebody testifies that on that same day, there was a meeting with President Eisenhower. And this is a quote by the person who testified, saying, at some point during that discussion, President Eisenhower said something. I can no longer remember his words. That came across to me as an order for the assassination of Lumumba. There was no discussion. The meeting simply moved on. I remember my sense of that moment quite clearly because the president's statement came as a great shock to me. And from that point, the CIA then takes that as a directive to start to organize an assassination of Patrice Lumumba.
So I guess we're getting a back-end understanding of just how powerful these leaders are.
Yeah.
So if you verbalize your thoughts,
you just say in a meeting
that's it.
Yeah, he's got to go. The CIA mobilizes. And where we're going to end is just at this point, that meeting takes place. 5 days later, a man called Sidney Gottlieb lands in Congo, and his code name is Joe from Paris, but he is better known within the organization as being the poisoner in chief. And we're gonna take a quick break.
Wow.
Yeah, on that really
disturbing
note. Yes.
I know.
So today you are both drinking a non-alcoholic Sauvignon Blanc from Darling Cellars, based in South Africa's Western Cape. And so the Sauvignon Blanc that you both are drinking today has aromas of ripe tropical fruit, flavors of yellow peaches and gooseberries, complemented by a fresh acidity.
The pressure of trying to To not look like you are so different from everybody, telling people when they offer you a drink that, sorry, I don't drink. At least it's a great option. The African history is extremely painful. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we don't have platforms where we can discuss and discuss just openly, but in a very
Right.
safe environment, just the ugliness of colonialism.
Yeah.
And Sarah, I said you set me up.
I'm sorry.
This is so painful.
I'm really sorry. If I'd known it would have been so triggering, we would have found a lighter episode for you. I'm sorry.
No, anything colonial, there's nothing light.
I know. Lynn and I have been talking about whether or not we need a bar freak mental health plan because we spent all our time talking about like massacres and dictators.
And it's
There's
not even
moments
like
where
when we're like recording the episode, but also while we're doing the research and all the reading, like we're consuming a lot of very dark things weekly, I feel like.
Yeah, if anyone has ideas, we're looking for like very light, positive stories around decolonization. Where we left off, Sidney Gottlieb, who's the poisoner in chief, had just landed in the Congo. And so a little bit of information about who Sidney Gottlieb is. He is the brain behind what's MK Ultra, which is in the 1950s, the CIA believed that, the communists had discovered an ability to do mind control. And so Sidney Gottlieb was who they hired to try and get the US to mind control people. So that's really his professional background, is in trying to study mind control. And they had actually hired people from like Nazi and Japanese concentration camps to do this program. I'm sorry. We're just going to keep going. And
This is very dark history.
no. But by the time he lands in the Democratic Republic, in the Congo, he is basically issued with an order to, to poison Patrice Lumumba. That's what he comes to do. And so he shows up with what's called Clostridium botulinum toxin, which is the most deadly biological agent, but is also used in Botox. It's just a fun fact.
Free information to anyone who's
Fun fact.
Botoxing.
It is an odorless, tasteless biological agent, and with only a tiny amount, it can paralyze you, killing you, and you'll go into natural respiratory failure. So it was a way for them to kill Lumumba without any traces being left behind. And their plan was basically to put it on Lumumba's toothbrush or in his food. But unfortunately, as he arrives into...
No, fortunately.
Oh, sorry. Fortunately, as Sidney Gottlieb arrives into Congo, President Joseph Kasavubu of the Congo removes Lumumba from his position as of prime minister, and Lumumba is placed under UN protection, so they can't get to him, right? They then spend the next 2 months trying to find a way past the UN protection to deliver the poison into Patrice Lumumba's food.
The man was determined.
Yes, he stayed in the Congo for 2 months. He stayed until the point where the poison was deemed unstable and had to be dumped.
Sure, Sarah. I think we need to be careful what we drink, to be honest. I'm just thinking, who knows what people are offering you?
I know. But still, even after this plan isn't working, the CIA HQ is impatient. They're like, nope, we still have to get rid of him. So they come up with a new plan. They're like, we're going to abduct Patrice Lumumba. And I'm sorry, this is going to make you upset. Sorry.
I'm ready for it.
Okay. Their plan is basically they're going to abduct him. Then they're going to kill him with a hunting rifle and make it look like a tribal rivalry gone wrong. That's the CIA's plan, right? So they start coming up with this whole thing. They also have a plan where they're going to try and stage a car crash and kill Patrice Lumumba in that way. So they basically just spend months throwing around ideas.
He was a real threat Clearly.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly. And he hadn't even been in power for that long. That's how much of a threat they saw
What
him.
made him such a threat?
I think he had this, it was the vision as well as the access to resources. It was the idea of someone like Patrice Lumumba actually controlling the resources in the Congo. So they go so far as to purchase the rifles for this plan. And just as they're about to do this, Patrice Lumumba is placed under house arrest in a coup by Joseph Mobutu. So it's almost like this crazy thing where the CIA keeps trying to kill him, but he keeps being like he's increasingly isolated because of other factions. Right? And then the CIA has this moment where they realize that they actually don't need to kill Patrice Lumumba. They just need to help Mobutu and the Belgians do it. So they're like, why are we trying to kill him when everyone else is trying to come for him? And that's when their plan changes. That's when they realize, and this is the real role that they end up playing. They've been monitoring him for so long because they've been trying to get this poison delivered that when Patrice Lumumba escapes house arrest because he's trying to get to Stanleyville, which is where his base is, the CIA are the ones who notice. And they deliver that information directly to his Congolese rivals as well as the Belgians. They tell them exactly where they can intercept him. And that is how he ends up being intercepted. And less than a month later, on January 17th, 1961, Patrice Lumumba is assassinated by firing squad. And it's the Katanga separatists who do it under the guidance of Belgian officers. It's a joint operation that is involving Belgian authorities and his Congolese rivals, including Mobutu and Moise Tshombe.
So I'm just thinking to myself, what would have happened had he not been assassinated? Because it wasn't just the Americans who were determined to kill him. The Belgians are determined to kill him. And it looks like internally, some of his own people.
Yeah.
What would life have been like if this man had not been assassinated?
I mean,
maybe Congo would have had a better chance. I don't know.
I think they would have. But I think there's a really sad inevitability to it because you realize that if the Congolese hadn't done it, the Belgians would have done it. Well, the Belgians did do it. But if the Congolese and Belgians hadn't done it, the Americans would have done it. If the Americans didn't do it, somebody else would have done it. And there's a really sad inevitability to how many people wanted him gone. But kind of just kind of ending the... Oh, sorry, Lynn, go ahead.
No, I was just echoing what you were saying. Like, it's difficult to think or picture what Lumumba would have done because there were so many actors everywhere who wanted him gone that someone would have done it.
Yeah. And so let's just kind of end this episode in really understanding, the connection, the role the CIA ended up playing in that assassination. Because a lot of people will say, oh, it was the Belgians and the Congolese and that the CIA tried to and they didn't, right? But really understanding that, like, Mobutu in particular was on the CIA payroll from 1960 to 1961, right? And that he used that funding to consolidate military power. They also worked a lot behind the scenes and with him personally to make him more credible, building an international profile for him. They coached him. They passed on intelligence about potential enemies that he could have. They even gave him guided steps on how to control the radio stations when he did his coup. They funded anti-Lumumba media, propaganda. They funded student groups to directly oppose Patrice Lumumba. And, Mobutu would go on to have this, like, really, what I'll say, a repressive autocracy for 30 years. And so I think, there's a lot to unpack there about the CIA's role in building his profile.
Well, the fact that he was on the CIA payroll means once recruited, always recruited. The payroll
Well
stopped
said.
because he didn't need the money that way.
Well said.
He was now president.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they now had the
Yeah,
Eurasian.
exactly. So
Yeah.
he could have anything he wanted. That's why he stayed in power for so long.
Yeah.
How sad.
Yeah.
At what price?
Yeah. I think that's like perfectly said. I think that's perfectly said. And just to end, the church committee concluded their hearings, but there was zero consequences for anyone involved. And then obviously in 2007, a heavily redacted version of the family jewels became available to the public.
Yeah, that's a sad reality. But you know what gives us hope is the many, many young people out of the Congo who are doing amazing things. Real change where you see people truly empowered may take longer than we expected, but one day it will come.
Yeah. Amen and amen. I mean, I think I'm sorry we potentially traumatized you. We hope you come back. We hope you come back, and we promise we'll tell a lighter story next time. But I think, I mean, I'm so grateful to have you here, and I think your lived experience, you know, having someone who lived through colonization is an incredible resource. And I think having you in the podcast studio just reminds me of how important it is that these conversations be intergenerational and that our generation really make sure that we are absorbing as much as we can from people like you. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I don't know if enjoyable is the right way to describe it, but I think it's been a necessary opportunity to revisit the past with a truly different lens, and of course accompanied by powerful voices from the next generation. So thank you.
And I mean, I think I would love it if you kind of just told us and told, you know, our audiences a little bit about the book, where it came from, where they can find it. I think that would be amazing. While I hold the book to the camera.
This is really special. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Lynn. So the book is a collection of stories from amazing individuals who have walked their part of their life's journey with us. And who are us? Our foundation, Higher Life, because they have received scholarships through us to be able to carry out their education. And they have so generously agreed to share their stories. So this idea came to me like 5 years ago, that why don't we tell our stories more? Because I was so literally sick and tired of seeing very negative narratives that some people in the aid sector more, and and some philanthropy as well, would project Africans as a never-ending problem and use very negative images to raise money. And at the back of my mind, I would say, if you've been asking that way for the last 30 years, clearly it's not working. But because I was also seeing on the other side, 30 years of amazing stories of people who have invested their energy, their passion, their talents and their skills, using just the scholarships we have as one of the key elements for them to become successful in whatever they're doing. And this is an opportunity for the whole world to share their progress and their successes, and of course some of their pain points along their life's journey. Should I mention the platform?
Absolutely. Plug the book.
Okay.
I'll even give it to you. You can hold it.
Okay.
And that's your camera over there.
Okay.
So
let's go. So you can get this on Amazon. You can order a hard copy. You can get a soft copy to download on your Kindle. And we have an audio. You can also audio format. So if you like to just listen, so the choice is yours. We made it really very straightforward. And honestly, we ship anywhere.
And the book is called
and still we rise. The power of philanthropy.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Thank you for bringing this into the studio. Thank you for allowing us to be a small part of bringing this book into the world. I think
My
that's
pleasure.
really wonderful. And Lynn and I forgive you for not asking us to record the audio for the book.
Yes,
Because
it's okay. Next time.
as you know, our voices are we have a podcast, so our voices are our IP.
Oh, remember there is room for more books, so I'll keep that in
I
mind.
know, but today's price is not tomorrow's price. You don't know how this is gonna blow up.
That's true. We'll negotiate.
Um, that's amazing. Thank you, Lynn. Any final words?
I'm really glad, Mrs. Masiwa, to have you on this episode with us. And I know I'm so sorry that this episode was so heavy, but I'm so sorry. I feel like we always apologize.
I know.
It's okay.
Lynn, one final thought is I think we should make like a poster where we put testimonials of what our guests say leaving the podcast studio, because it's never like totally positive. It's always like, well, it's always like, well, this wasn't a fun experience, but like necessary, I guess. So I feel like we should just have a list of testimonials of people being like, I don't know if I enjoyed that, but I would do it again.
Yeah.
Yes, that's literally what we get.
Yeah, I'll definitely come back, but not too soon.
Not soon.
Yeah.
Well, on that lovely note, we hope our audience comes back. We have we're revisiting the Democratic Republic. Oh, the Democratic Republic of the Congo again next week for a part 2 that Lynn is doing. But so definitely keep listening. And other than that, I'm going to say goodbye. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.